So yeah, let me introduce Matthias Koch. He's from JetBrains. He will talk about ReSharper IDE, Rider IDE, which is really ReSharper in IDEA, and he will correct all my wrong things in a moment. So, quick question: who all of you are here first time? This place on the meetup. Really? Cool. Okay. One more thing. I would like to thank TrustPay. TrustPay is paying for revenue and for hopefully some food and beer afterwards. I see beer in the fridge, so that's the important part. So once again, TrustPay, thank you. And with that, should I spend a few more minutes talking nonsense?
I can also start already.
Okay, great. So,
at least.
Matthias.
I just forgot, I still need to connect Chrome, and it was, what did you say? Cast, event space video, right? Source desktop.
It's you. You're again.
I'm there already. Oh. But that's just my browser. Source, yeah, desktop, and that's what I was about to do. One more time. Yeah. Okay, so everyone can see everything. Okay, hi again. So, let me just switch, and yeah, we're good to go. Not yet actually, because usually I'm also trying to talk about a few things. Let me see where this is. Maybe it's branded, I'm not sure, but no, it's not. Usually I also give some information about what Rider actually is. So the first question would be, who doesn't know what ReSharper or Rider is? Everyone's familiar. Who uses ReSharper? Majority. Who uses Rider? Only one. Is it good? Yeah, you should all trust him, really. Okay, but I will give a. That's weird. I will give a few words about. No, I don't have a remote. I should stay big. About what Rider actually is. The idea was more or less when .NET made the step forward being cross-platform with .NET Core, maybe also with Mono, but predominantly with .NET Core. We were facing that need more or less to have a cross-platform IDE, right? And the idea was to, well, we had ReSharper, which is an extension for Visual Studio, so we don't have any UI-related things except from a few dialogues maybe. But cross-platform, what can we use as a front end? And the closest possible answer was to reuse the IntelliJ platform. Everyone knows what IntelliJ is, and it's basically our IDE for Java and Kotlin and or JVM in general. And most of our IDEs, or if not all of them, inherit from this platform. So for instance, PHP Storm, PyCharm, they all build on top of the IntelliJ IDEA platform. And so the architecture with Rider is basically IntelliJ IDEA as a front end, and ReSharper more or less becomes the background service. ReSharper is still responsible for doing all the heavy lifting, like computing features, doing code analysis and all that stuff, refactorings. And IntelliJ is more like the view on those things. The interesting thing about this architecture is it's a JVM process with IntelliJ communicating with a .NET process, right? I haven't seen that anywhere else before, but then again, I don't know much about architecture, but it sounds crazy, I think. And the interesting part is those two processes communicate with each other with a protocol that's written in Kotlin. Who knows Kotlin? Kotlin is our own language, more or less, based on Java, but with lots of nice syntactic sugar things to make it less verbose, more friendly for novices also, and it's also it's called Kotlin First now for Android, so it's the first choice language for Android development. Okay, that's an interesting fact, I think. ReSharper code inside Rider, they reuse approximately, well, don't nail me on that number, but it's roughly like 90% reuse, because much of the web stuff is probably taken from WebStorm. But yeah, there was nothing invented that's like, there was nothing built new in Java or something for code analysis. And the big benefit of that is by doing so, we inherit a lot of features from the IntelliJ front end. Like for instance, VCS integration is, I can tell you, I was a big fan of Git extensions before. When I was using still ReSharper, and I'm also, I think, called creator of habit. It was very hard for me to switch, but after finally making the switch, VCS integration is like totally outstanding in Rider, and besides a lot of other things as well. Okay, so that's like demo time, and give me a second, I need to find my right spot here where I can sit. That's comfortable. Okay, everyone can still hear me, yes? Okay, so let's see. That is basically more or less the first look. A few things, like for instance here, the coloring that was made by me, so that is not the default or something if you wonder. But that's how Rider looks like. We have a options dialog, of course, where you can search. That's also, like, as with ReSharper, searching is very important in the productivity tool, and you can do it in Rider also in like every possible case. Like for instance, here, if you have those things open, you can just start typing, and if there are multiple entries which match, then you can just navigate through them by using the arrow keys. Then again, what you probably already know from ReSharper, you can go to, I think it's called Search Everywhere. I always mix up those names, because I also look at Visual Studio, of course, just to know how to compare. But this is Search Everything, so we can basically search everything from here, not just classes and symbols, like for instance, funky noise, like symbols, for instance, here, but also files, and of course also, let me see, settings. Like for instance here, we can directly turn off and on certain settings from this dialog, and it just works. You can search everything. This is more or less, also for me, a very interesting experience, because sometimes people ask me about certain features, I never use them, and I just go into that search bar, search for them, and I actually find them, and then, I don't know, spend another minute trying to figure out how it works, and that's it. Right? It's really great for discovering new additional things. That also works if you double shift. So of course you can just configure your key map. But speaking about key maps, before, when I was still at my previous company, some people had different keyboard shortcuts, and that's always annoying if you're doing pair programming and all that stuff. So people forced me to switch the key map. But with Rider, and that's really great, and it works similar actually in ReSharper. If you search for a certain command, then you can, okay, let me come up with a command. Maybe navigate. No, let me come up with a command. I should use this one probably, and maximize full window. Just give me a second. No, like this for instance. No, also navigate to. Navigate to, yeah, like that. So the interesting thing here is whatever action you're searching for, you just need to know the name, right? You can put it here, and if you forgot how the shortcut actually was, you can see it just beside it, right? So it's great also for learning new shortcuts. And beside that, if you, well, I have a funky MacBook keyboard, but if you see here, press blah blah blah, it's Option Enter to assign a shortcut. That also works pretty nicely because we can just assign a new shortcut. So I do this very often. I don't bother anymore with, I don't know, keyboard key maps and all that stuff. If the second pair wants another shortcut for a certain action, you can just assign that, and that's it. And for the next time, probably it will work. Okay, some more things. I will give you, speaking about plugins, I told you no, actually I didn't tell you, but it was on the slide before. IntelliJ has a huge plugin ecosystem already. Like, for instance, there's a plugin for working with log files. Like here, for instance, this is a log file from our ReSharper backend, and you see it's properly formatted, so this pipe W signals it's a warning, so it will be highlighted as a warning. If we further scroll through, okay, there are also some green messages like information. If you would print an exception message, including stack trace, you would also be able to navigate, so it would highlight the path to files and that stuff, and symbols, and you could actually navigate. In this one, I think there is no exception, so I should probably update that, but I think you get what I mean. Another thing, okay, I mean, you shouldn't really scroll through log files. Usually you want to search something, and so if you, I hope that's big enough, if you select a certain search term, then you can just do Alt-Enter, and for instance, you can say show only lines containing that particular search term. If you do so, then everything else gets collapsed, and okay, here it's just a bunch of messages in the middle, but let's try this again with this one. Oh, I didn't select it. Okay, might be a bug. Yeah, stuff like that happens. But let me see. Maybe I forgot to restore. It's more about the restore. And let's try this again. Yeah, and then you also have the hidden lines in between and all that stuff. But also PowerShell, for instance. I don't like PowerShell, I'm honest, but Writer makes it really easy to still work with it in a nice way. So, for instance, there's a nice article about how null comparison works in PowerShell, and the null should always be on the left side. I don't know if you know, but now you know. So, with those plugins, you always have, what can I say? Like a good teacher at your side who tells you this isn't right, and this teacher does it in a pleasant way. Because sometimes, I'm not sure in this case, so here we only have the inspection, which will tell us that the null should be on the left. So if we would, unfortunately here there's no how do you say quick fix for that, but in some other places there are. But we can also like rename variables, and it will update all the other usages. I think we can also navigate to certain symbols if we want, stuff like that. So just something that you're already familiar with from ReSharper, I guess. So, same with bash files. When I make that switch and then suddenly you have to write bash files and it's like, okay, what I'm actually doing, I have no idea how those things work. Like this, for instance, which checks if a command actually exists. But again, here, writer tells us, okay, there should be some double brackets, and we can just alt enter and apply the quick fix. And renamings, of course. Okay, I won't bother with that, but, you know, markdown, preview, and all those things. Let's go to actually working with C# code. And there's one thing that I really, really like, and I'm sure you will like that too. Should I start with that? No, I will keep that for a little bit later. So again, here I want to show you something which is called code vision. So let's enable code vision. Okay, that's nice. So just like ReSharper, if something is really broken, symbols are not imported or something, we can just fix that with alt enter, right? We can remove redundant code, like in this case, because default is enough. We can remove, oh, that was too much. We can remove redundant code, just tidy up things a bit. We can, inside strings, just hit enter, and it will just concatenate things so that it fits onto several lines of code. We can, let's work on this, we can simplify expressions. Like in this case, we want to check if this paragraph only contains letters, right? But this expression looks a bit messy. I mean, maybe we come up with something like that if we just write code. But really, there's potential to simplify that. And I will do this just with a couple of alt-enter strokes. So first, we can move that negation into the all or into the delegate. Let's do this first, like that. And then second suggestion is to actually use the method group, which is like that. And that's really different and much clearer to understand. I think everyone agrees. Or don't you? Who wants the first one? The second one? Okay. But not so many. I saw only 2 hands being raised. But the rest is not clear, not yet. Okay, take your time. Oh, good. Okay, something more. That's why I enabled code vision. And yes, I know you probably heard that name before, which is called Code Lens, right, in Visual Studio. So no, I won't make how do you say? I'm not ignoring that. I know it's there, but we have a couple of things more. So for one, you have this information right here. Who was the author of that code for that particular method? But also, I'm the author of that extension. Actually, we have this nice extension which is called cognitive complexity. Anyone has heard about cyclomatic complexity before? Okay. Of cognitive complexity? No. Okay. Yeah? Okay. A few. So there's a very interesting paper about that cyclomatic complexity is not really helpful in understanding if a certain block of code is really complex or not. Because, just as an example, I don't have it inside right now, but these two methods would actually be considered fairly similar in terms of, or if not even equal, in terms of cyclomatic complexity. Why? Because they have the same, I'm not sure, but they should have the same amount of for eaches. Cognitive complexity, however, takes the nesting into account. And that's why, in this case, right here, where we have some nesting, it tells us, okay, this is very complex. Oh, this is very complex? Whereas if everything is sequential, then okay, this is all right. I mean, everyone can kind of understand what happens there. Still, if I remove a few, then you will see the complexity gets smaller, and there's also some. Let's check. There's also a settings page for that. Oh, that's the wrong one. Where we can also kind of adjust what's actually showing here. Like in this case, it's simple enough. And also that was really interesting. I only did that recently, and it still looks a bit shitty. But those little icons here, or the +1, +2, +3, those are the markers where actually the increment of the complexity happens, and by how much actually. But you can turn that off, of course. It's just for visualization. Okay, what else? Change signature? No, let's do maybe navigation. Yeah. I did that quite a lot already. But let's go back. So of course you can navigate to derived types, base types, etc. Someone knows why vehicle base is written in bold and the others are not?
Because this is basic class for all of these other classes. First, who inherited the vehicle, and after other classes inherited with abstract or something.
The abstract is the little a on the left. Maybe you mean the right thing. Yeah.
It's directly implemented, and the other one is probably directly implemented.
Yes, true. That, or maybe you meant the same thing. But the bold ones are directly inheriting. The others are just transitively inheriting from that symbol. All right. So I can move back. And also here, just suppose this is a list of many more derived classes. Again, here's very important. We can start typing to shrink down the list. So this is very important. Like, especially for me, you know, if you work with syntax trees and you have this base abstraction of I tree node, which is basically everything. Like everything is a tree node in syntax trees, and then you really want something like that, because you can much easier navigate around. Okay. Like I said, we can also use how's it called? Initial letter search. Like if we type BB, then we get vehicle base. Do you have a how's it called? Air conditioning here? I'm really burning. Maybe also because of my hat, but that's more about the haircut. Okay, what's more? Card test and stuff like that. Okay. Let me see. We also have usages shown here as the little code lens items. And, of course, you can search for to-dos as well. Navigate through them, and I think there's also the possibility to have some kind of preview for that. And it just searches for all the what's it called patterns that you define. So you can customly define patterns, like, or filters they're called, just for something you want. Like if you have personal assigned to-dos or something with your initial letters, then you could extend those so that you only see those. So now let's switch to this postfix templates. Who has heard about postfix templates before? No one?
I don't know, that's basic.
Okay, so get ready to have your mind blown. But you know Yoda from Star Wars, right? Yeah? Who doesn't know who Yoda is? Alright. So it always reminds me a bit of Yoda, actually. The usual way of, and this is like a factory method right here. Okay? The usual way how Yoda speaks, that's what it reminds me of. But if they write that in the conventional way, then it would be something like return new car, then pass the arguments like first seats, then maximum velocity, and done. And by the way, you've seen that I mistyped something. I wrote the semicolon here, and it would just correct that. Some small things. But it's really helpful also as a presenter to have that. So now let's do this with postfix templates. And the interesting thing is you could read it just like, it's just like if you read the method actually. So first it says car, yeah? So let's start with car. Then create. Create is more or less synonym for new, right? And we call that like a method actually. Like an instance method on car. And tap, and it will do the new expression for you. Then insert we continue reading, okay? Then the seats, maximum velocity. Again, here this initial letter stuff, I can just write MV. And then in the end, okay, not here, but here, return. And done. And moves to the front. Okay, and now, just to repeat, I heard it's always good to repeat a nice example, but in this case it's really worth it, I think. Just to show you how powerful it is. This method should do some kind of filtering based on an existing collection. Now we'll do just that. So we start with vehicles, we for each around them. For each, okay, tabbing a few times. Then big vehicles, let's say that a big vehicle constitutes as seats are greater than 10. And only if, so I will do the if now for the Boolean expression, bam. Then I will just yield the vehicle, bam. And in the end, of course, I will just convert it to link, right? All right. So you like that? Anyone can see themselves using that?
Can you convert it now to the expression valid method?
Say again?
To the expression, to the arrow function.
Oh yeah, sure. Here. Yeah.
Perfect.
So that's a code setting for me. You can configure that, of course. You can also make it a warning, actually. And I think it's also made a warning, I'm not sure. No, it's not. But you can configure that if methods, for instance, should always use expression bodies or not. I usually tend to do so only for properties, I think. For methods, I usually prefer the curly braces. Okay, live templates. Okay. Live templates. I'm not sure, do I still have that? Yes, that's there. So there's a live template. And I created it before already, but it's called fake. And just like this here, and who's doing unit testing? Okay, majority, you all know fake it easy. Fake it easy. So usually if you do unit testing, you're putting in some kind of stubs, mocks, and things like that, right? And this is an interesting approach to kind of make this more fast in writing the fakes. Because in this case, just suppose this is the same as a .fake. It works similar, but this is a placeholder, this $ type $, and we can assign for that a certain macro. And in this case, the macro is guest type expected at this point. So if we then would have a method, and I would just, it's basically the same, but create stub. I'm not sure why I don't have this already existing here, but whatever. default. Then in our test, if we would create a new subject, something like that, we would just need to write fake, and that's it. And it automatically inserts the expected type. In most cases, that works. And especially for writing, for constructing stubs and mocks like that. Okay. What else? Refactoring, legacy. Oh yeah, of course. That's a nice one, yes. Some releases ago we introduced formatting inspections, so that similar to style cop, I think. Who uses style cop?
Is it still a thing?
Yeah, I'm questioning that myself all the time, if it's still a thing. But which one? The style cop as analyzers for Roslyn? Yes. Well, at least that, yeah. Okay. So I kind of have to maintain the extension for ReSharper, and StyleCop really, well, what can I say? They're way behind actually, also in terms of their parsing with the new C# language features. So if anything, I recommend use the StyleCop analyzers, the Roslyn analyzers, but the old thing, maybe try to stay clear. But anyway, ReSharper introduced those formatting inspections, and you can see, for instance, here, just by looking at it, you would maybe assume that this is also executed conditionally, right? And then, but you have this warning here, and you can actually also make it, and that's a very good tip, I think. If you go here to inspections and then configure inspection severity, and don't move to the right, but here on this item, hit enter. You can also configure its severity, and you can, for instance, say it's an error, and then all the time, because it's quite severe, right? If you read code and you think it's executed conditionally, that can be problematic, depending on what you're doing. But it can be, how do you say? I don't want to use swear words, but Peter, you know what I mean. Okay. So to fix that, the same basically here. But of course you don't just walk around and fix those manually. You just use the reformat code, this thing. That actually works quite fast. There's a cleanup code, which takes into account also the semantic model. And so because of that can remove stuff like unused usings and things like that. And there's also reformat code, which only works based on the syntax tree. Reformat code is, because of that, how it works much faster. And so if I reformat here, it's just a single shortcut. And you see here on the left also what has changed or which lines have changed. And our code is, at least from the syntax level, it's all right. And like we intended probably. Here's another thing, you see that file is called legacy. Why? Because you come around stuff like that. There's a method call and you pass true and 1 and you have no idea what it actually means. This is painful, I think, because you then have to invoke something like quick documentation, probably that, yes. So you can see how the parameters are called and what it actually binds to, the argument. The better way, or there are two ways actually, one of which I'm not a fan. The first one, and people on my team actually implemented that, but I'm not a fan of that, I'm honest. It's called parameter hint, and we can choose to show parameters. And then you would have those be shown in line. Anyone wants to take a guess why I don't like that?
Too long.
Huh?
Too long.
No.
This is question because it makes code more bigger.
Yes. It's not necessarily about the space. What the consideration for me is if you commit code like that and you watch it, let's say, on GitHub or something. You don't have that, right? So, and C# already has a solution for that, which is called argument names. So let's go to settings, and there's a, excuse me, I have to search for it, code style or something. Code style, and let's see, C#. Code style, yes, and then there's this one, and we can say, for instance, for literal values, they should be named, and string literal values also, and we also want them to have make a nice warning. Let's save that. Also, I always recommend to you, if you're doing something like that, make a clear decision on where to save that. In most cases, for inspections, code analysis, it makes sense to save it in the team shared layer. For everything like visual things, like, okay, font color, don't save that in the team shared layer. I think you also can't, but yeah, just to be sure. Yeah. And now we get this warning, and if we, like I said before, execute code cleanup now, which takes a little longer, should at least, then things like that also get fixed, I hope, or not. Okay, let's try this again. Code cleanup, reformat, it might be the update. Okay, it should do it. Full cleanup. I think it was the wrong profile. Oh yeah, and Jan Cat. Oh, that makes you laugh. Okay, should have shown that earlier. And you see, it takes very long. I have no idea why. Maybe I screwed up with my solution here, but usually it doesn't take so long. Okay, and now we actually have the argument names here. Okay, something that's really outstanding in Rider is the debugger, and I will try to show that, yeah, briefly. One thing, of course, you can do, for instance, stuff like conditions, and of course you have the ability to type conditions here, and also have code completion, of course. And notice something, if I write count and I tap, it gets length. Why? Because enumerable is actually an array. So we have the same gimmicks that you have in the editor also in this little condition text box. So we can continue, something like that, and of course this never will hit, but you get what I mean. The second thing is we can do a lot of things. We can, of course, break on exceptions and stuff like that, but something that's very unique in Rider, I think, is for a certain breakpoint, we can make it dependent on another breakpoint. So just imagine, I won't show that live, but or maybe I should. I will show it. Let's go back. So there are two calls to print people, right? One with Tim, Josh, Chris, and one's with Chris, Martin, and Matt. And let's say we only want to debug print people in the context of the second call. Then we could mark both breakpoints. And we make this breakpoint right here, come on, non-suspending. That means it will only get tracked, but not, I mean, the execution won't stop at that point. And for the second, we define that this one is dependent on the other. That's a bit messed up actually, because if we select that, you see it's kind of hidden. The text box behind it would show the place where the breakpoint is, but yeah, it's hidden unfortunately. Anyway, let's do this, and it's called VM. So let's debug this. And again, there's the outlet. Oh, it's done already. And now if we come here, we should have Chris, Martin, and Matt instead of Tim, Josh, and Chris. Let's see. Or maybe I should enable. Maybe I should enable. Where is it? Toggle mode. Okay. What's that? What the heck? Ah, okay, yeah, they're all clear. Sometimes I'm at the moment of getting out of here if something really surprising happens. But it's basically just because we had breaking on exceptions was enabled. So let's presume. NX unit apparently throws a bunch of exceptions when it starts. But that's also interesting if you want to debug into other people's code. Oh, and it has finished. Nice. No, that's not what I wanted. Let's go back, try again. This one. And it has finished again. Did I do something wrong maybe? Enabled, disable until. Okay. Yeah, I was setting the breakpoint on the wrong line. On the wrong line, I think. No? Okay. That's fine. Two statement. Let's try that. Okay, let's do this again. Breakpoint, and this one. Maybe it was something about local functions. Let's see. And if not, but usually it works. On my machine, I can't say that. On my machine, it doesn't work. In my other example, it works. Okay, but now, well, might be something with the local functions maybe. But now we have, of course, the second thing, Chris Martin Net, instead of the first. And also, I should also show this probably. Let's restart. And sometimes you have codes like that, where multiple expressions are nested into each other, and then you might need to debug into one of them. And what do? You, I don't know, go to definition and set the breakpoint where you intend to, right? So for instance, if you want to debug print people, right, then you go to print people and set the breakpoint there. Or you make step into, step out, step into, step out, step into, step out. Rider has this concept of smart step into, where just the next execution points get listed. And again, here you can start typing, right? Print people, and we're inside print people. Also, the debugger has a lot of stuff like, okay, it doesn't have an immediate window, I can tell you, but it will very soon. But you can evaluate expressions. And of course, also here you can just type anything you want, you like. Like, for instance, let's get full again, something like that. If I type it correctly. Edit. It doesn't exist. We're in the wrong context. Yes, we should go outside. It will work. Just trust me. I'm an engineer. Okay, something else. Any questions so far? No questions? Who's working with code where you need to start multiple projects at the same time? Oh, a few. So I will show you. IntelliJ has the concept of run configurations, and that means you can there's a bunch of run configurations, like normal .NET executables. You can also debug into JavaScript code that works with Chrome, at least, I know. With anything else? At least with Chrome. Chrome, anyway, has the best debugger tools integrated. And the funny thing is you can also create a compound configuration from which you can select multiple. Like, for instance, you see also tests will show up as configurations. But in this case, if you run the unnamed configuration, then both would get started. I actually could just try that. I never tried. Okay, it would just show the test. But there's another one, like in another project. Like here, for instance, if I execute that, let's see. Services and not started. Oh, I didn't debug. I'm stupid. But usually it would show up in the services window. And the interesting part is there would be under node which says currently running. And then you can also switch between those when you have a dedicated debugger window for each of the processors. Let's try this again. Maybe it looks this way. No, I have no idea. Maybe I should have set up that better beforehand. Anyway, Docker, there's Docker support, but I don't have Docker started, I think. Let's start Docker. Is there anything, maybe you can tell me, anything someone really needs that I haven't shown yet? Skip this way. Yes. And you can also save ReSharper settings into editor config, so you only have one file. There's also language injections. I think that's something you would like. Ah, that's the wrong solution. Assistance here. Okay, let's try this. Select. Yes. So I'm writing a SQL statement in a string, and because I'm also connected to a database model, it will show me or get me completion for the actual table inside the database. So let's see, I should be able to do. Let's make probably the wrong one. Let's do this again. Star from main. Is it main? I have no idea. Where? Well, so you have completion for all the different columns, of course, for the tables, and you can join and stuff like that. That all works because there is database. Let's see. Database. There's data group integrated into Rider, which is a separate product actually, and it's called name. With the table, I have no idea. It's probably something for a table. Yeah, but this works because data group is integrated, and you have all the different providers, of course, for that as well, for different data sources and stuff like that. What I really like about Rider, and I just reconfigured that very recently. This is quite new. This is the commit dialog. Let's see. On the left-hand side, you have all the pending changes. You can organize them into different change sets. Also, it's like can I say? Let's say you're working on something on one bug, and then you realize there's another bug, but you still want to have separate commits. Then what you want to do is to create different change sets and just assign them to the different change lists or sets. Change lists. Sorry. You just don't mix that. One really interesting tip that someone else gave me is like if you need to adjust some database string just for local development, and you don't want to commit that, or you're inserting a password just for testing purpose locally, then you could put that just in a separate change list, and chances that you actually commit that are very low, right? Because it doesn't get selected by default. And but what I want, yes, right. Another thing is in this diff view, what's also really nice, you always have the power of the code inspections at any time. So even if you're committing, you can still like remove unused usings and things like that. But what I wanted to actually tell you is that there's, let's go back here maybe. If you're overwhelmed with, let's say, errors in solution, how's it called? Errors in solution, like that. If you are overwhelmed and you see this, in this tiny rectangle, I should now do things, and you're like, okay, for real. There's also a shortcut to just get everything else out of the way and just to make you focus on what you're actually coding. And just with a single shortcut, go back to the same view before, which is called, next restore. It's called hide all tool windows, I think. Restore windows, yeah, this one. So that's something that I can really recommend. Okay, that's nearly the end for the 50 minutes for the first time, for the first presentation. No?
Okay.
Maybe? Or if you have questions, I can show something more.
Is there some support for VT maps or some edit or something?
For VS?
Vim or something like that.
For Vim?
Vim,
Yes,
yeah.
sure. And it's easier to exit even, I think. Yeah, I'm not joking. I mean, I tried it once, and it was easier to exit. I mean, they made something special about it.
Is there a way that you can do actually a remote pair programming session, like that you create?
That will come. Not yet. Well, there's TeamViewer, there's Skype, but yeah, there will be something dedicated for that. Question over there?
Is there some indication for lines covered by Lucas?
For lines covered?
Covered by Lucas.
Yes. I forgot to show that actually. Let's go here and execute, and there's, you see that cover? You can also profile. I think that's what you meant, right?
So basically, .cover is included as well.
.cover is included, yes. And here on the left-hand side, you then see that, but you see it right on the. Now, you see those green bars, yes? So otherwise, if something is not covered, it would be gray. And also here on the right, you have all the, percentages, and you can navigate, of course, and stuff like that. You can, I haven't shown that either, you can also debug into third-party code. Not only, well, in this case, it's even downloading from single source. But you can debug into that. Even if symbols are not available, it will get compiled. So you will never have that feeling that you can't see what's happening behind the curtains of some new package or something. You can just put a breakpoint here, and it will just stop there. More questions?
Remote development, like in CLI, you can go to WSL.
Remote development. Remote debugging.
No, also
Remote
development.
development and debugging.
That's what you asked, basically.
No.
No.
It is what you can use with Visual Studio Code
There are two levels, like CLI. You can select that your environment is WCL, like any Linux machine.
Yeah.
You'll connect over the SSH, and you develop basically and debug on your machine, but the code is running on other machine.
Well, like remote debug, yeah, but
It is debugging, yeah, but you can even modify files, and it will sync the file somehow. You're basically compiling remotely. You don't compile.
I haven't used that, but if it's in C-line, that should probably also be here. If it's not language dependent, then
I haven't found it yet.
But it's in C line.
C line, yes.
Okay. Can you maybe send me a link to the help page from C line afterwards? Yeah, but usually all the language agnostic things are available like in every IDE. Should be at least. More questions?
Can you show us memory footprint?
Memory footprint.
Yeah, like,
Um,
the obvious thing for a ReSharper, and if it is basically it should be same for a ReSharper.
you mean on the system right now? Yeah. Let's see. Well, the good thing it actually uses your system resources, right? I have a second solution open, which is quite large. So it's not just that single one. Yeah. But I think that's the good part. It actually uses your resources instead of Visual Studio.
But usually, like you complain for a ReSharper when somebody is in the team is not using ReSharper. It's like, yeah, it's all our memory. I cannot. If you can comment if this is somehow improvement on it or it's basically the same.
Well, on certain solutions, it's difficult to say. The half of it already Visual Studio eats up. Right, on this, how much can you allocate? Like 2 gigabytes, maybe? Or 3? No, it should be 3, I think, with Visual Studio, and then you get out of memory exceptions. But half of them are already eaten by Visual Studio, and then it's just natural. I mean, it's 2 times the same job, basically. Yeah.
So basically, you are saving the memory when you are using Writer?
In some way, yeah.
So because you are using it only once?
Yeah. Visual Studio and Roslyn has a very different model of how to analyze code. Roslyn uses more immutable structures, but because of that, in syntax tree parsing, you often need the parent node from the current node you're working with. And to achieve that, they need to work with red-green trees to get to the actual parent. Also, they're discarding a lot of created nodes, which results in GC pressure, right? Because the garbage collector always needs to collect that. ReSharper model works a bit differently. It's more about it's a mutable model, and it works with read-write blocks, and it has different implications, of course. I think the second one works better, mostly because of the GC pressure, which does not exist. But yeah, those are the 2 very different models, let's say, or how they work. And also, I wanted to say, because of that, I mentioned that initially, because of this architecture, if you, can I do that? Let's see. TSX. Let's see if I can connect to my work machine. Where's TSX? Yeah. Everyone asks me for new versions. Okay, close that. Close. Okay, this is a remote desktop, it's not locally. But what I want to show you is to open the ReSharper solution, which is quite large. Is it there? No. Open. Let's see. ReSharper. ReSharper generated. And now, although everything still loads, and okay, there's usually also a bit of lag, but not that much. But you see, I can already navigate based on file system information, not yet based on the semantic model, but file system at least. And also if I type something that just works. I mean, it's not like you have a lot of UI freezes or something, which is typically if GC pressures in the same process, this won't work here. Because in .NET world, when the GC gets into tidying up things, then everything stands still. Every thread, even the UI thread, especially the UI thread. Okay, more questions? No questions? You can still ask me afterwards. Also, there's a second
talk. Yeah, okay.
There's a second talk. I want one more thing. If you want, who wants to try Rider now? At home? Come on, raise your hands. All of you? Yeah, all of you who raise their hands, you can get a what's it called? Code for a 6 months trial, if you like. The rest also, you just need to write me an email, okay? I won't do anything with that, just to get you the code. And maybe you need my email address for that. Is it somewhere? What was it? So it's there, or Twitter, as you wish, but I can send you one then. But you need to promise me to get me feedback in return. No, you don't need to. I just want you to try it. Okay?
I will have one question maybe. If I open with this some solution that existed in Visual Studio, it will be somehow modified or something?
That's so interesting that you asked that, because I get that question a lot. Usually I tell it myself, or I talk about it myself, then I forget it and someone asks again. But no, there's no modification involved. So you can try it in a team where some other people still use Visual Studio. They won't notice anything. There's no conversion, nothing. It just works with the existing system.
It actually happened to me. It was maybe 2 years ago or so. I was on a project and there was a guy, he created, maybe it was different because he created the solution in Rider, and then we just couldn't do some things in Visual Studio which could otherwise work. I don't remember exactly what it was, but
that's great. Well, it was 2 years ago, probably has been fixed meanwhile. It's true that the header differs if you create it from Rider, that's true. But I think that's also true for different Visual Studio versions, probably. I can't say for sure. But the format itself, even without the header, should work. Yeah, it will definitely work. I'm doing this regularly. Right.